Hello and welcome again to the Writer Review. This is Eric Carrot Writer, and this week we're going to be taking a look back at the 1997 action-adventure thriller titled Speed 2 Cruise Control. Now, Speed 2 Cruise Control runs for 2 hours and 6 minutes long. It is directed by Jan de Bont. It is produced by Jan de Bont, Steve Perry, and no, I'm not talking about the lead singer of the iconic American band Journey. No, it's another guy who's got the same first name, last name combination. And Michael Pacer. The script was written by Randall McCormick and Jeff Nathanson, based off of the characters by Graham Yost. It is composed by Mark Mancina, the cinematography by Jack N. Green, and it was edited by Alan Cody. And the stars of the movie are Sandra Bullock, Jason Patric, Willem Dafoe, Tamuera Morrison, Brian McCardie, Jeremy Hotz, Svenson, Royale Watkins, Tamia, Kimmy Robertson, Christine Firkins, Lois Chiles, Francis Guinan, Michael G. Hagerty, Colleen Camp, Joe Morton, Tim Conway, and Glenn Plummer. Oh boy, do I got a lot to say about this one. Look, okay, usually a lot of movies, when they become extremely popular, of course they could have just did either one or two alternatives in the movie industry. And this also can apply to every movie that has ever been released. If the first installment is a success, you can either just leave it be and move on to another project. But more times than not, movies with exceedingly highly successful in terms of making money and being popular, what else could they do? Why, of course, have a sequel. Not just to just sit back and just leave things be and leave things alone and not having to have anything, wrapped up in a nice little immaculate package. No. More often than not, films with extreme popularity and success in the box office in terms of money and finance. Well, do you know what happens next? It more times than not, it gets churned and eventually becomes a sequel. Now that's fine and dandy, but the thing you've got to also remember is that more times than not, sequels just never seem to follow up from its predecessors. Sure, sometimes franchises get better as they go along, like the Fast and the Furious and the Lethal Weapon movies. And hell, even The Godfather and The Godfather Part 2 were major successes in the box office. But then you get a movie like Speed 2, coming off of the very popular, successful Speed movie, which is still easily one of the best action thrillers out there. And then you get Speed 2 Cruise Control. And then you have to ask yourself, how can this happen? You take an exhilarating film like Speed, which was a big success at the box office, approved by fans and critics alike, and then you follow it up with a sequel that fails to measure up. I mean, what went wrong? I've seen a lot of bad sequels or good ones that were inferior to its predecessor, but this sequel is the worst of them all. And the thing that angered me the most was that it possessed a lacking effort to even try to even stay in sync with the original Speed. Even though it took an enormous budget to make this. Even by 1997 standards, $180 million. And it ended up tanking. No pun intended. Or maybe there was a pun intended because, there was a big, oil tank in this movie that exploded. Well, this movie didn't just explode, it evaporated. The whole idea of the story is completely illogical and convoluted. You know who was the smartest person in this whole entire franchise? It was Keanu Reeves. Now we can all go out and say that Keanu Reeves that the reason why he didn't do this movie was because he just didn't want to do another action type movie after the film of Gross of I don't know. He was in another movie that came out, but he just didn't want to do another action movie or wasn't inclined. But then after he looked at the script and he said, "No, fuck it. This movie is a piece of shit." And you know what? Kudos to him. I'm glad he didn't regret it afterwards. Because who in the bluest of blue fucks would have ever wanted to actually be a part of this movie? Oh yeah, Sandra Bullock comes back. In fact, she's the only one from the original Speed movie that actually does come back. And then you get a whole bunch of other characters that you just don't care for or you're not really too invested in. And it seems to me like the acting here just is so bad that I don't even think mainstream actors like Sandra Bullock and Willem Dafoe were even trying. In fact, they were pretty much just hamming it up in their acting. That's all I saw. Okay, so Speed 2 Cruise Control sees Sandra Bullock once again caught in the centerfold of another hijacking. Only this time, instead of on a bus, we are now on a cruise ship, complete with dumb passengers and equally stupid crew. The main baddie in this film is Willem Dafoe. And of all the performances, he's probably maybe the only character I was really fully invested in. And I wasn't even supposed to be invested in him. He was damn well supposed to be playing the villain. He was the antagonist, and he was the only character I really actually cared for. Okay, I don't condone his actions. Okay, I don't think it's right to hijack a boat and try to kill a bunch of passengers and try to just kidnap and just blow things up and things like that and to do all kinds of other villain things. No. I don't condone his actions. But he was the only character that I actually saw some level of interest and intrigue in because everyone else was just plain bad. I didn't care too much about the passengers. I didn't care too much about the crew. In fact, I couldn't even care less about Sandra Bullock or her wooden puppet boy toy, who's not Keanu Reeves. So Willem Dafoe's mission is pretty much to mess up the computer systems on the ship that he designed so that it will go on a collision course with a giant tanker while also taking in possession valuable jewelry. Now, people are often wondering, how did Sandra Bullock ever actually got on a ship? Well, okay, it goes a little something like this. In the early scenes, we see Sandra Bullock struggling to pass her driving test. You do remember 3 years ago, you were driving a bus that was under hijacking by some demented terrorist. So what could be so complex about learning to drive a car? And if that makes anything bad, the car looked like something that could have been just created out of a soapbox. It was so cheesy and convoluted and dumb looking. Meanwhile, our hero, Mr. Personality, is on hot pursuit chasing after an ice cream truck that's filled with contraband, with bags of contraband drugs. And then all of a sudden, she explains to her driving instructor, played by Tim Conway, who's pretty much almost saying like, oh, just end my life already, just so I could get the hell out of the script and collect my pay type of mode. She explains to him that the reason why she dumped her ex-boyfriend, Keanu Reeves, or his character, is because of the fact that she just didn't want to date another guy who lives his life for the moment, who's like always like this thrill seeker. She didn't want to date some guy who's going around chasing bad guys. So she once again is currently now dating another cop. But she thinks that this cop is probably just doing some boring passing out tickets or writing demerits type of thing. And that he's not one of these like high-speed chase cops. Or at least so that's what she thinks this new beau is. So then when she arrives on the crime scene, she realizes that all this time, this new boyfriend of hers is just as much of a guy who practically sacrifices his own life just as much as Keanu Reeves just to chase bad guys. So in other words, she's currently dating somebody who she was trying to get out of. So then, of course, she was obviously pissed off, and he tries to, calm her down by giving her a couple of passes to go on a cruise. So then they go on the cruise, and from then on, the rest is history. Now, nobody in the audience wanted this movie to be made. And though I never really care much about popular opinions, I have to say that I agree with the majority of the fans. There were signs that this film could have been great. And maybe I probably would have dismissed these naysayers who said there was no need for a sequel. But after watching this movie, I gotta take their side. I mean, there are some levels where this movie does have some level of greatness. I mean, Bullock definitely has a great deal of charm. And director Jan de Bont was successful in thriller films at the time with The First Speed and the movie Twister. And Willem Dafoe, who has been great in many films over the years, It's just a shame that this film was so bad it was beyond repair. And even Sandra Bullock, who was almost like the big hero in the original Speed movie, well, she's just down to being just a cheeky broad. I know I hate to use that kind of descriptive adjective, but that's the only thing I could actually describe of her. She was that bad. Basically, she was made to look all cheeky and dumb. And she actually seemed more closer to being a hindrance and even just a victim of her own stupidity in a lot of scenes. When really, in the first Speed movie, she was kind of badass. And here, all she is just on for like comic relief and nothing more. It's like she doesn't even try to act. She's just practically almost like giggling for every scene she's in. That's not the Sandra Bullock from the first Speed that we knew of. In this one, this is what we get. And like I said, Willem Dafoe was like the only character in this movie who actually had some level of interest to me. And even him, he's just pretty much phoning in and just being over the top and evil. And that's fine. He can play villains very well. He does have that wicked shark-like smile and that evil demeanor. But he was more successful as playing Green Goblin in the Spider-Man movie in 2002, where he actually went full-on villainy and didn't ham it up like here. So Speed 2 Cruise Control demonstrate that just because it was a big budget film doesn't mean it'll guarantee high approval from the masses. The original Speed had a shoestring budget coming in, and it came out box office gold. So, it just goes to show you that not all the big successful box office blockbusters are always considered good. Sometimes great movies doesn't come at the expense of what money you can pull out of your pockets. Sure, it was surreal and illogical, but it gave high tension, a scary but effective atmosphere, and characters that you actually truly care about. This sequel, you don't find any of that. Even the action sequences lack any drama or intensity you can be invested in. Even if the last 40 minutes is pretty much a hijinks and Willem Dafoe just practically just goes to town on his eternal path of destruction, threatening people's lives in danger as they all hop aboard on lifeboats to try to make it back to land safely. But what really pisses me off is that some of the characters do such incredibly stupid things that you just can't really care for them. And that also includes Sandra Bullock's character and Jason Patric's. Just too many illogical and too many bad decisions. And it just really made my blood boil. So the Bont's strategy is simple. Keep the action running and let all the action do all the talking. And if he thinks for 1 minute that the constant shaking of the camera has any kind of lasting impact on the action sequences, he is fucking wrong. The only thing it does is make your stomach churn. So now we find Sandra Bullock back as Annie Porter, who is now in relationship with a cop named Alex, played by Jason Patric. who surprises her with 2 tickets on a luxury cruise. Even though she still laments that her ex-boyfriend Jack, Keanu Reeves from the original Speed, who cleverly backed out, gave her an anniversary gift of pepper spray, which resulted in her spending some time in an emergency room. So while they're enjoying a relaxing vacation, a madman named John Geiger, played by Willem Dafoe, has nothing but evil intentions, and he wants to crash the ship into a tanker and steal some loot. Yeah, on this ship, all we find are just a bunch of shallow, materialistic characters who just hardly seem in any way, shape, or form believable, or let alone to be taken seriously. Well, okay. This movie was never meant to be taken seriously. Okay, I admit, in a lot of action movies, we do like to have a little bit of humor. We do like to have a little bit of light charm. But my God, this movie didn't have charm. This movie did not have, characters you can invest in. And I don't feel sorry for any of the characters' fates. Okay, mind you, I'll tell you, there's no major big body count. I'm sure the passengers who got off the ship came back safely. But then again, maybe they didn't. And I couldn't care less because these characters were just just there for the moment and nothing more. As now, of course, Willem Dafoe has, like I said, has played a many assortment of villains in the franchise, in movies. But we all kind of know that in the art of villainy in movies 101, it's pretty much a rule that most villains are not evil for the sake of being evil. There's always a method to their madness. In Geiger's case, he was the one responsible for installing the computer panel on the ship. And, as a villain too, I take deep sorrow and sympathy for this guy. One day, just one day, he reported sick. And then they just pretty much fired his ass and saying, you don't work here anymore. Just because he was absent for one day. And he was fired. So now he's about to, so now this is a bit of a plot for revenge. And, just to show his true villainy, he's kind of a bit of a sick individual, both figuratively speaking and literal. I mean, obviously, he is in declining health. He has some kind of, tumors inside of him. So instead of actually taking pills or anything like that, he actually installs leeches inside of his system. Yeah. I don't know. I guess they're there to eat whatever tumors are manifesting inside of him. I don't know. Obviously, the guy is in declining health. And so instead of using like medicine or pills or insulin or vaccines, he decides leeches are the best things. Sure, why not? Just to add more to that cliche villain role. Part of the reason why I saw this movie was because I naturally enjoy Sandra Bullock, and her character is easy to become sympathetic with. She's easy to like, makes a few wisecracks here and there, and tries to make the movie a bit interesting. But it's just a shame that they made her so completely dumb that it just made me cringe. Once Geiger takes over the ship, we hope that the number of deaths are few and far between, which they are. Okay, if there's anything that's being destructive, it's, eventually he's all on the path of self-destruction because of his whole evil intentions, and there's no real major body count. Sadly, the rescue mission of getting people off the ship and into the lifeboat was tedious and boring. Though I did wish that they'd return to shore safely. The scene was badly affected by the soundtrack from composer Mark Mancina. But the biggest blunder in Speed 2 cruise control is when the ship loses control and glides into a coastal town located on the island of St. Martin. While civilians can actually spot surfers, sailboats, and ski boats a mile away. Yes, I hated that scene where they went all the way to St. Martin, that little island, and they crashed into a town. Oh, probably a lot of lives were lost. Buildings were destroyed, property damaged, and then it just ends on a happy ending. They finally actually managed to drop the anchor ashore. But can't they all see a giant luxury liner coming their way? And the most laboring part is that the sequence lasts over minutes long, and no one sees it coming until it's too late. So although, Bullock might have an adorable smile, her smile can be featured in many scenes where there's very little to smile about. And when the oil tanker explodes and dozens of people are killed in the process, she still holds her head up with glee like it doesn't faze her in the least. It's just so awkward in its details. It's just not funny. When Alex slips the engagement ring on her finger, her shiny teeth fills the air without knowing that she's about to embark on another dangerous misadventure. But I don't think we'll likely ever see another Speed 3, since this movie was so fucking bad. It's just so... Ugh! But you're probably not going to see another one because this movie tanked so badly in the box office. And Jan de Bont's got nobody but himself to blame. But there's one thing that I want to know. Is it just me? But in movies, doesn't it seem ironic that couples seem to form when something terrible seems to happen? Huh? Possibly. It might happen in the real world too. Maybe this movie would have been better if everything was just normal the way it is. In this movie, just too many things happen with very little to keep you intrigued. This movie was really, really bad. It was we've had a few really bad movies that came out in 97. Franchise killers. Batman and Robin was terrible. And I thought that one was bad. This is worse. So, I don't think I can even give this one any kind of score, except for, on a scale of 1 to 10, I have to give Speed 2 Cruise Control a 1 out of 10. I'm sorry to say that. So I guess this ends my writer review. Thank you all for listening in. If you wish to subscribe to my YouTube channel, please feel free to do so. And if you wish to leave a comment, go right ahead. But just remember the 3 simple rules. Be kind, be courteous, and please refrain from any rude comments, and I will be back again with another movie review. So until next time, this is Eric Correct Writer saying, keep watching those movies, and I'll see you around. Goodbye.